The Fallen are one of my favorite, well, not a warband. It's hard to categorize them as a single thing, despite what the modern Dark Angels might believe. They are similar to the other factual legions. They are divided and broken. However, these factual legions were able to form some semblance of a band during the Scouring, with a few exceptions like Caliban. The Fallen as a whole weren't so lucky. After the events of Caliban, many were sent scattered to the future. A good comparison is like Samurai Jack, where instead of a samurai, it's a bunch of power armor knights numbering in the thousands. Other than that difference, they are both pretty similar. They were sent to a terrible future and are pretty much acting like Samurai Jack, either doing their best to help who they can, or being Samurai Jack Season 5, doing what they can to survive. Their range in perspective is all over the place due to the confusion that happened at Caliban, where you find many worshipping each of the four gods, while others just want to be nothing more than mercenaries, selling themselves to any bidder, and those that still trying to be the chivalrous they once was, protecting humanity from the horrors. So why so much division? Let's first talk about what caused the Fallen to even begin. The most basic knowledge that kickstarted is that Luther almost had the Lion killed in allowing a nuke to be detonated by a planet that refused to join the Imperium. The hesitation was due to the jealousy he had towards the Lion, where he could have easily been seen as his own man, but he's nothing more than a shadow to him. Of course, Porce clearly realizes what he was doing was dumb, but the damage is already done. Somehow, Lion discovered it either through his instincts or his little hooded friends. So he was sent back to Caliban to oversee the recruitment process, so Luther took this opportunity and succeeded from the Imperium and betrayed the Lion. I mean, what better time is any when the galaxy is burning? However, it goes a bit deeper than it's just the petty anger of a mortal man. There's a lot of straws were bent for him to decide to succeed from the Imperium and betray the Lion, because when he was at Caliban, he saw the damage the Imperium did to it. Everything that made the planet special, the forests were all gone, replaced with barracks and factories. The people were treated poorly, with them being sent to live in the lower levels of the city where there's no water or light. A good example how the Imperium viewed them was the Terran general referred to them as natives, non-Imperials to Zahariel. As if the Terrans were bad enough being themselves, many turned into cultists, causing havoc on the planet, and the houses being tired of their culture being destroyed and the injustice of their people begin to rise. It was a mess, but we're just getting started. Similar to the Alpha Legion, the Dark Angels stuck in Caliban were also divided, with each their own ideals. Many had different loyalties, being the Lion, Emperor, Luther, Caliban, the Watchers, the Orbis, and other Dark Angels. A good chunk had just no idea what was happening, which was a bit strange with the chaos that was going on around them. Luther blames the Lion for having Caliban be in this state, which there's some argument since other Primarchs made sure the planets weren't touched. It's even alluded that he did know Caliban had issues, where the last surviving Knights of Lupus was their cipher, and most likely informed him that the planet had issues. The planet is corrupted by a Nurgle artifact called the Orbis, is the reason why the beast even became the bee. There are some areas where it's heavily corrupted. However, and some irony is that without the beast to keep people out of these areas, anyone that enters began to become corrupted, which caused the cultists to spring up. The resentment for the Lion was always there. It just became worse when the Lion spanked Luther in front of the Death Guard and the Lunar Wolves for going to help them fight the planet without informing him, even though the Lion never bothered responding to his calls. With so much lack of interest from the Lion care for Caliban and his disrespect towards Luther, his declaration for Caliban independence was justified. Well, it's not as black and white. Lion isn't the type to let things slide. However, the problem is that he's single-minded. He can only focus one task at a time, so most of his energy was on the crusade, especially since Lion doesn't see himself as a ruler. He'd rather be a general and not an accountant like his brother Gilliman. So who else can he trust than Luther to do his task? However, he failed. While Caliban was in complete chaos with a revolt and corruption, he hid in his tower, debating whether he should summon a demon that Typhon and Erebus told him to do. When Luther had the chance to take control, he simply just took over the planet in one fell swoop. Once the Lion eventually returned back to Caliban after the events of the Horus Heresy, he was walking back with a barrage from his home planet, kickstarting the Dark Angel Civil War, which of all the legions to wage war, the Dark Angels are up there when it comes to devastation since they're excellent at purging everything, leaving nothing behind. So with chaos flowing around Caliban and the might of the Dark Age technology being used on the planet, eventually it gave in and blew up. It would have been a nicer fate for those on Luther's side to die with the planet, but it seems like gods wanted some entertainment in their suffering, where they're scattered across space and time. As if that was the only tragedy of the falling in all of this, The saddest part is that a huge number of the Dark Angels never knew why they fought in the line or why they even fought, with the only explanation they tell themselves is that he was a traitor. This lack of understanding is due to the Order, an old knightly order of Caliban where those in lower rankings of leadership aren't given any information of the leader's true agenda until they rise to the ranks. However, with so much division and loyalties, Luther group was small, using the Order/Dark Angel custom to make sure the rest of the Legion didn't know what was happening, and those that did ended up being in the cells. This leads us to the Fallen now being created. So let's talk about why I like them. One of the things that I enjoy about the Fallen is simply their perspective. It's similar to Caliban, waking up to a burning galaxy with the Imperium being nothing but a carcass. However, unlike Caliban, where they had the Imperium protecting him, the Fallen are truly on their own. They are forced to survive and understand this galaxy, if not, they'll burn with it. With the added bonus being they're constantly hunted down by their modern counterparts. Which, by the way, the last thing a Fallen wants is to be captured by them, since the chaplains are capable of breaking space marines. Which is why I find the Fallen being hunted down by modern Dark Angels a more interesting perspective than a chaplain looking for them, since they're doing it out of shame that their legion ever became traitors, despite many of the Imperial faction believing that all Astartes are heretics, regardless of their status, due to how the Legion betraying the Imperium. When it comes to the Fallen, they're just trying to survive and make some sense of the madness they're in, especially those who believe themselves loyalists and completely innocent. However, in this galaxy, it means nothing. So being trapped in a corner, surrounded by the enemy, you wouldn't blame them for ending up falling into chaos. I mean, that's how many fall, being at the other end of a bolter, with the only escape selling one's soul to the dark powers. So this loyalist Dark Angel became a Chaos Space Marine due to the circumstances he was forced into, a tragic fate for a noble knight. There are those that still persevere despite the challenges of not aligning oneself to the dark powers, still being loyalists, doing their best to help those who they can, regardless of the consequences they could face. Not all has the same noble view or that desperate to be part of chaos, so they end up being mercenary and pirates, finding and plundering across the galaxy, selling the sword to anyone. There's honestly a lot of direction one can take the Fallen for any of the 4 Chaos Gods, being a mercenary or a loyalist space marine warband. That's why I enjoyed them, being good background lore for any homebrew of the Fallen. When I was making my homebrew army, I decided to pick the Fallen as their background lore and leaning more on the outlaw theme. One of the inspirations I'm trying to emulate is the High Noon skin from League of Legends. Yes, that game. Despite the game being nothing but trash, it is one of my favorite skin lines. Something I'm struggling to emulate, but it's a process that I'm enjoying. There are some lore issues when it comes to the Fallen. One of the problems is that they don't have any books being the main focus. Something like Shroud of Night focus on a group of Alpha Legionnaires infiltrating the Hive City. You're not gonna get any of those books since the Fallen are just made to be the antagonists of the Dark Angels. The closest we got is Lion Song of the Forest, where we get a solid vibe about him, but again, not the main focus. Remember, there's a Primarch on the cover. The books that should be focusing on the Fallen don't do that, like Luther and Cypher. Those focus on the characters on the cover. As for the Horus Heresy books, they're also character focused, being Zahariel. I mean, they made Luther just a side character, and that's the reason why Luther Force of the Fallen even exists, to fill in the gaps. Those books are poorly structured, where 1 minute you're reading how Zahariel is this good Christian boy, loyal to the Emperor, and then the next book he's having some doubts. And in the next book, he's a full-blown chaos worshipping dude. His character goes all over the place. That's the issue when you have multiple authors handling a single character. None of it really touches upon the Fallen, it just explains why they're so divided, how Caliban was able to escape from the Imperium, and the Norgo artifact buried in the planet now being used by Vastor. So when you do get into the Fallen, be prepared to come up with some lore where you want them to be. Another issue is the future of the Fallen. Will they still continue to exist since Luther has now escaped and is growing a following, and the same for the Lion? I still think they will continue to remain to exist even without Jido's poor intervention. As the name suggests, they have fallen from grace and they simply refuse to join Luther or the Lion, more interested in focusing on their own agendas than blindly trusting someone else. The Fallen are an interesting divided warband that should get some more focus. It would be cool to get a Fallen perspective of him navigating 40k, acting as a great way for new people to read. So thank you for watching and bye.